Money is one of the most important inventions of human civilization, and yet its origins are shrouded in mystery. How did money come into existence, and why did it become such an essential part of our daily lives? In this first episode of our documentary series on the history of money, we will explore the origins of money, from the earliest forms of exchange to the emergence of paper money and digital currencies. The history of money begins over 5,000 years ago, in the ancient civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt. At this time, people relied on a barter system, where goods and services were exchanged for other goods and services. However, this system had many limitations, such as the difficulty of finding someone who had what you needed and the problem of dividing goods into smaller units. To solve these problems, ancient civilizations developed a system of tallying debts and credits on clay tablets. The system was known as the Mesopotamian clay tablet accounting system, and it allowed for more efficient trade and commerce. For example, a farmer who needed cloth could trade his surplus grain for cloth, and the transaction could be recorded on a clay tablet. This system made it easier to keep track of who owed what to whom, and it allowed for goods to be exchanged over longer distances. In ancient Egypt, a similar system was used, but with papyrus instead of clay tablets. This system was also used in other civilizations, such as Greece and Rome. However, these systems were still limited by their lack of portability and divisibility. To solve the problems of portability and divisibility, ancient civilizations began to use commodity money. Commodity money was based on the exchange of goods such as grain, cattle, and shells. For example, a farmer could use his surplus grain to buy a cow, and the cow could then be used to buy other goods and services. Commodity money had several advantages over barter and tallying systems. It was portable, durable, and divisible, which made it easier to trade over longer distances. However, it also had its own limitations. The value of commodity money was tied to the value of the commodity itself, which meant that the value of money could fluctuate depending on the supply and demand of the commodity. It was also vulnerable to counterfeiting, as people could try to pass off inferior goods as more valuable ones. To solve the problems of value stability and counterfeiting, ancient civilizations began to use metal coins. The first metal coins were made in ancient Lydia, modern-day Turkey, around 600 BCE. These coins were made of electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, and they were stamped with a design to indicate their value. Metal coins had several advantages over commodity money. They were standardized, which meant that their value was guaranteed by the issuing authority. They were also portable, durable, and divisible. Metal coins allowed for easier and more reliable exchange rates between different regions and civilizations, which promoted greater trade and commerce. The next major innovation in the history of money was paper money. The first paper money was developed in China during the Tang Dynasty, 618–907 CE. This new form of money was lightweight, easy to carry, and could be printed in large quantities. It was backed by the promise of the issuing authority to exchange it for metal coins or other commodities. Paper money allowed for greater flexibility in the monetary system. It made it easier for governments to issue more money and stimulate economic growth. However, it also posed new challenges, such as the risk of inflation and the need for trust in the issuing authority. In recent years, we have witnessed the emergence of digital currencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. These currencies are not physical, but exist purely in digital form. They are based on complex algorithms and blockchain technology, which allows for secure and decentralized transactions without the need for a central authority. Digital currencies offer many advantages over traditional currencies. They are global, borderless, and fast. They also allow for greater privacy and anonymity in transactions. However, they also face challenges such as volatility and regulatory uncertainty. The history of money is a fascinating journey that has shaped the world as we know it today. From the earliest forms of exchange to the emergence of digital currencies, money has evolved to meet the needs of changing times and societies. As we continue to navigate the complexities of the modern monetary system, it is important to understand and appreciate the origins and evolution of this essential invention. In the next episode of our documentary series, we will explore the role of money in shaping the rise and fall of civilizations throughout history. Stay tuned for a deep dive into the fascinating and complex relationship between money and power.